Have you ever found yourself advocating for everybody else and then something happens and you realize that you need to advocate for yourself? This is what this episode of the Breakthrough Show is all about. So stay tuned. We're coming up now with a brand new episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another inspiring episode of The Breakthrough Show. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and today we are joined by an extraordinary guest, introduced to me by another extraordinary guest that we've had on the show before. Our guest's life and work are a testament to the power of advocacy and the indomitable spirit of the human will. Our guest is the CEO and co founder of Elevated Levels Foundation and steps into our virtual space today to share her journey and the profound impact of her work. Her story is one of unwavering commitment to social justice and equity, lifting the voices of Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities to the forefront of conversation and change. With her roots firmly planted in Newark, New Jersey, Annie has navigated through the realms of the nonprofit and public sectors, bringing over 2 decades of experience to bear on her mission to empower and elevate. Today, advocacy amidst adversity takes on new meaning as we explore not just the work she does, but the personal challenges she's faced and overcome. Without further ado, let's welcome the amazing Annie Holmes to the show.
Thank you.
Annie, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I am so excited to be with you today.
I'm so happy that Miss Tina C. Hines, she really has been throwing that glitter out there
Yep,
in
my
the
big
world
sister.
today.
That's what she
Um,
does.
so excited that she's introduced me to so many amazing people this year, including yourself. Other than all of the things that I shared as you were coming on the screen today, what would you like to share about who you are, Annie?
Thank you, Jessica. Well, first of all, that intro was amazing. I'm always humbled by the way people are able to synthesize who I am and communicate that out. So thank you so much. So aside from everything that you mentioned, I really am just a wife, mom, trying to figure this whole thing out while, doing it through love, like just making sure that the challenges that we face each and every day, that I'm teaching my kids, that my husband and I are tighter than ever to teach our family, come together during moments of adversity, come together because family is strength. And so, I've been married for what will be 22 years in June.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. I can't officially call him my high school sweetheart because he went to a different high school than me, but we
Okay.
were in high school when we started dating. And we have, through love, created 3 amazing human beings. Our oldest, Trey Holmes, he is 20. He is a college student, thriving, just doing amazing things. He's such an amazing human. Our second, Jaden, he will be 18. I can't believe that. And May, he's graduating from high school. We are homeschooling. We've homeschooled our oldest through high school, and we're homeschooling our 2 youngest. And he is focused on musical theater right now. And so he is just kind of living that life of being a performing artist. And then we have our little Lincoln Carter Holmes. He is 9. He'll be 10 in April. And I'm sorry, in May. And he is just a joy. He is just, I mean, everybody who meets him they just want to cuddle him. And he is just so brilliant and so intelligent. So, anybody who meets me, they find out about my kids, because when I look at my kids, I am just in awe that those human beings came from me in my womb, and they're out here living and thriving and doing great things. And then you'll probably see our puppy, Kobe Bryant Holmes, going through here. He doesn't like to leave me. He's right on the floor right now, but I'm sure he'll make his way up here at some point in the conversation.
I love it. Any of the animals that are in the background of these shows, eventually they realize they're the star and they just come.
They do. And they just take over.
That's it.
Why they say don't act with animals and kids, because they will just take over.
That's it. They will 100%. I tell the story often of in the very first season of my show, one of my daughters she was just a toddler at the time, and she, potty training and all of that stuff. And she just literally in the middle of the show, stark naked, just runs across the screen. And that was that. You couldn't
everything.
Thank God, but it was just like this moment. And of course, I'm panicking.
Of course you are.
What's happening?
World. No kidding.
I know. But going back to what you were saying, and you shared one of the sentences you said about doing things with love. And I think sometimes when we're trying to share a message that is challenging to share, difficult to share, one that a lot of people may or may not want to hear, it can be challenging to present something that we're so passionate about and that maybe isn't a loving thing with love. How do you sort of navigate that in your own as you're presenting some of these more challenging messages to people?
Honestly, I rely on my teaching background. So all of my degrees are in education. I graduated from Temple University with my bachelor's in early childhood and elementary ed. And then my graduate degrees are from Penn State University. And one of the things that I hold on to that I learned as an educator is that we all learn in different ways. And so when you look at the kind of the definition of learning, it's really just to apply context in order to gain understanding. And so we all have the capability of learning. It's just the way the information comes to us, and how we contextualize it within our lived or learned experiences. So when there's a difficult conversation, of course, everyone is always like, gently handle with, kid gloves type of approach. But the way I see that is that's the opportunity to meet and understand where this person is coming from, to then better understand how to approach the conversation. Because you can't approach the contextual conversation in the same way. You have to understand where are people coming from and what's going to make sense for them in order to move this conversation forward.
Absolutely. And I think I sort of understood the gentleness that needs to happen when we present information fairly early on, because when I was little, I've always been sort of a little bit. That's a lie, Jessica.
You're about to lie.
I have always been a rebel. Okay, don't tell me what to do or how to do it or where to do it.
Are one and the same, Jessica.
So when people would tell me things, I would always push back because they would come at me. And what I realized is it was the coming at me with this is what you're supposed to be doing that I didn't respond well to. Whereas my grandfather, who helped to raise me, when he would come to me with information, he would tell me a story. He would always tell me a story. And I took that to heart. And I'm like, oh, and I would realize things. And so I realized now, as I've created this platform for people like yourself to come on, when we share stories, people listen, as opposed to going, this is what you're supposed to be doing in your life, Annie.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's that that's kind of the sense, like the approach that your grandfather took. Let me tell you the story. So it takes away any fear, any angst, because it just breaks it down to we're just having a conversation. So that approach that your grandfather took is one that I would say is an approach of love. And it's
Mhm.
not always an approach I had. It's
Right.
something I had to learn, right? Like, and honestly, I would say the most impactful human being that helped me with this is Bell Hooks.
Mm.
Her book All About Love was transformational, but I studied Bell Hooks and utilized her writings in my academic work, and actually in my praxis as well. Because if you look at the arc of her writing, um, she really is dealing with coming from a Black family, and what did that mean, and what did that look like for her to be in the South and coming up as a Black woman, and what we were told love was,
Mm.
versus learning through our engagement with others who were a more gentle, were a bit more, took more time, more concern for our human beingness,
Right.
so to speak. And so the time I got to spend with her, while she was still living on this earth, really did help me to understand not just where she was when she wrote All About Love, but all of the work that came before and after that, and how she, just those loving conversations that you have with those trusted family members and friends to help with your growth and understanding really does help, just kind of ease back a little bit and say, okay, we could take our time and bring everyone along versus trying to rush and leaving everyone behind, or bulldozing over folks in the process.
Right, right. Absolutely. I want to say a quick hi to some of our friends that are joining us in the audience. Miss Kat is joining us from all the way over in Scotland. Happy Friday, Kat. And then Miss Brittany is out here as well. Happy Friday to you. We are going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna dive into Annie's story and find out what could be more challenging: advocating for your children as as their mama, advocating for your students as a teacher, or advocating for yourself as a human being. We're going to find out all of that and more, and even more than that, coming up after the break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go anywhere.
Breakthroughs are about more than you might think. They're about discovering who you are, digging deep, reaching to the core of your soul. They're about healing yourself, understanding your beliefs, creating a ripple effect. And it's not just those initial moments that matter. It's about using them to bring more joy into our own lives and the lives of others. It's about having fun, letting loose, enjoying every moment life has to offer. It's about finding a safe space. It's about creating connection. Join us each and every day for exclusive programming, special events, and a community to call home, where we invite you to explore, change the way you look at and live your life, and go beyond the breakthrough. So we ask you, are you ready? We'll see you online at thebreakthroughshow.com.
Welcome back to the Breakthrough Show. We're here with our very special guest today, Annie Holmes. We're actually not too far from each other in relation to the United States. So maybe one day one of us will be passing through and we'll get to have that in-person moment together. But for now, we are here online with you for this episode talking about Advocacy Amidst Adversity. Now, I mentioned in your intro, Annie, that you are not a stranger to advocating for other people. Can
Right.
you talk to us for a moment a little bit about the work that you've done in the world?
Absolutely. So from an advocacy perspective, I've worked in public policy. I've worked as a chief diversity officer in higher education. So I was the inaugural chief diversity officer at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, where I established the diversity office there. I then went on into public policy, working in the finance industry, working for Opportunity Finance Network, and then stayed within public policy, but moved back to education. And I was the inaugural chief equity officer for the Council of Chief State School Officers. And so we were the membership organization, or they are the membership organization that works with all of the state departments of education. So for every state and territory of the US, and every educational department, like the Department of Defense has their own system at different bases, we were the organization that worked with all of those educational departments. So the scope of the impact of the diversity, equity, and inclusion work that I did literally impacted thousands. And so, when I was at CCSSO, it impacted millions of children. I oversaw the National Teacher of the Year program, oversaw workforce education, and of course established our equity work. We even got a chance to get in some anti-racism work before the whole thing just kind of flipped on its head. But that just shows me that we were highly, highly impactful because of how quickly folks got scared of the work that we were doing. So so my goal was by 35, I wanted to be a chief diversity officer. I accomplished that, and then I accomplished it again, and then I accomplished it again. And now here I am at 45, excited to be on another leg of my journey.
I love that. I love that. And I'm so glad that you talked about the moment when things kind of blew up a little bit, because I think sometimes people can be doing like amazing work in the world and then it all falls to pieces. But I've seen the same thing that you're talking about. When people get scared,
Yeah.
it all gets shut down. When you don't hear something, it kind of related to being a mom. When your kids are in the other room and you're doing something and
Is it
it's quiet in there,
it's a little too quiet.
okay, you know something bad is happening in the other room. And listen, I try to rein in. My husband is the conspiracy theorist of the household. I try to rein it in a little bit, but when it's quiet, when
Yeah.
things get shut down and things are pulled away and funding gets pulled and all of that, I'm sure that you have seen that, and it is not, that doesn't mean something good is happening, and it doesn't mean that you weren't on the right path.
Right. Absolutely. That was a conversation that I continued to have with my husband as I would watch the arc of what was happening after my departure from these roles, where the folks who were committed continued to hold on and move the work forward. So it's great. And at the same time, I mean, it was right in front of my face. It wasn't hidden. The folks that were like, yeah, I'm still not comfortable with this. I mean, years into it, still just holding on to whatever value system that they had that tells them that someone else receiving kindness, joy, health, education is there, like there's some kind of value system. And the fact that these are decision makers that are pushing back on what our babies have access to, that to me is extremely concerning. Especially I would love to sit down and have a conversation with one of the was it Moms for Liberty? Would love to sit down and have a conversation with one of them, because for someone who is utilizing critical race theory as their doctoral dissertation framework, I would love to sit and talk with them about their concerns for books when literacy is quite literally crumbling us as a country. But you want to remove books, the thing that could spark a child's interest, right? Like one topic could spark a child's interest into read. That's what happened to all my kids. My kids hated reading, all of them. Last week, I came home and my oldest, the 20-year-old, was sitting outside on the deck reading a book aloud to himself. Just spending time with himself reading.
It's, you know what a rare sight that is for teenagers?
Do you understand? I kept asking him, "Are you okay? You need a hug?" He was like, "No, I've been reading in my room and I wanted to get outside and the weather is nice." And I was like, "Who are you? What? Who are you?" But that is quite literally like the whole point. You expose kids to the different styles of reading to spark their interest. That's when our literacy improves, not taking books away. And honestly, the disservice that they're doing to their own kids, I have concern over that, because coming up, I learned that education was about preparing folks to be good citizens. That was why I was like, yes, education, it's great. We're preparing folks to be good citizens, to participate in this great society. I'm not really sure what the goal is right now. For some of these parents. Sorry, see?
That's what I'm saying.
He doesn't feel too heavy about it either. But I'm really concerned about the folks that truly feel that they have an understanding of what is, and I know that that's not even what it is. It's not them feeling like they know better. It's the willingness to erase our history right in front of our face. And I say our history because it's all of our history.
Yeah.
It's all of our, like, if you did not have slaves in this country, we would not be where we are. Like, this country was quite literally built on the backs of Indigenous and Black folk. And so you can't erase that. You can't not tell that story. That story could be powerful if it was told in the right way, but there's so many issues with folks wanting to hold on to power and control that unfortunately we are ways away, I'm afraid, from right sizing the ship and kind of getting it balanced so that we can, I don't think we're all working toward the same goal.
Right. I agree. And I think that ties in a little bit to one of the things I wanted to ask you about, which is that I know that you were in education, but now you homeschool. So I'm assuming that some of this ties into that decision.
Yes. I mean, we've always we've always kind of watched our children and follow their life path. Depending on, the type of kid that they were. Post-COVID, the stress and anxiety that my kids would come home and talk about. Like our second son, Jaden, he would come home and articulate every day. He was like, why are they acting like COVID isn't real or it didn't happen? And he was like, I appreciate the fact that the administration and the teachers are trying to be pleasant and, hey, you're here and we're so excited to see you here. But you also have to acknowledge the fact that COVID happened and that people have been impacted by it. People are still being impacted by it. Yeah. My son came home. He was like, yeah, my English teacher was at school today with, this was like 2 years ago, was at school today talking about he had COVID. I was like, I'm sorry, he was in the classroom with you? He was like, yeah, he was in the classroom he had COVID. So when it got to the point that our youngest son was quite literally cutting his hair out at school because of the stress, I was like, that's, I know too much about education to allow my babies to go through that. So, because that's gonna, I know enough to know that that's going to limit their ability to actually learn, right? If we don't deal with their mental health, they're not going to embrace whatever content that is trying to be taught. And so, yeah, it was my experience in education, most definitely. And to be real with you, all the things that I now know about our education system, nothing against our current local administration, but in 2020, when COVID first happened and the shutdown happened, I remember saying to my organization, as well as the State Department of Ed folks, like the commissioners of education and stuff, if we're not innovating, if we're not looking to innovate through this, we are going to be behind the times. And quite literally 2 years later, it was like, oh no, because there was no intentionality about innovating. And now here we are, it's 2024, and AI is all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And the schools are just like, well, we're trying to figure out how to regulate it. Well, once again, you're way far beyond the scope of things, because ever since I've been able to, we pulled our, he's now 9, I think it was 7 when we pulled him out. The way he's able to articulate his learning is so far beyond what any other 3rd or 4th grader would do. And so, I looked at my husband and I said, as an educator, I just know too much. And thankfully he works from home. So with him working from home and now me being an entrepreneur, we both navigate across with the two of them what they're learning. And we've really adopted the unschooling method, just because the pressure of quote unquote school and what that meant, we needed them to unlearn. And really that's why we say we kind of follow their lead. So with Jaden, we follow his lead with his performing arts. And with Lincoln, he's a gamer. And so he learns through gaming. I mean, he's learned about copyright law already. Just gaming.
Love it.
I mean, he's intrigued by, Mario and Sonic and Nintendo and Sega and all of those things. And so now he wants to learn Japanese so that he can go to the original Nintendo world, right? So it's like kids are not dumb. We just listen to them and offer them the learning opportunities. And honestly, my heart's goal is to be able to create these types of learning environments for other Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, because we were, and I bought into it as well, right? We bought into this education system in the US, and we've forgotten about our ingenuity. And I was, that was one of the things that helped me too. I was thinking about because I grew up in a multi-generational household. So my maternal grandparents, my parents, and then me and my sister grew up in the house together. And I always thought about how my grandfather and grandmother would just come up with ways to get things done. It was just, my grandmother was pulled out of school in 6th grade to work the fields. So I was always amazed at how this woman with a 6th grade education could problem solve and figure things and get things done and just keep it moving. And so I was like, okay, if that's in our blood, right? That's in our DNA. That's in our experience of our soul and our heart, then we should be able to do that as well. And it's been a few years. We've been homeschooling. They're doing great. They're thriving. And like I said, if I could help create some of these like homeschool pods for communities and to support parents through this, because I know a lot of the reason why parents don't homeschool is because they're intimidated by the system and the processes and those things. And so because I know how to break those things down, and I've actually helped parents across different states navigate that, I really feel like that's another kind of heart passion of mine that hopefully I'll get to work on.
I hope you do too. I mean, we're unschoolers here too. That's how. I mean, I don't even know how I describe it, but we're a whole mess over here. But I've witnessed living or started homeschooling down in Alabama, which is a whole. Alabama's fun. Anyway, and now I'm back. I'm back in Connecticut, and homeschooling here now, and I've watched. as much as I talk, I'm also quite the observer. I really do. I like to watch and just
Yeah.
see what's happening. And some of what I've seen of organizations telling you, I've witnessed them telling people that certain laws exist and they don't. I've witnessed them telling people that certain laws don't exist and they do. And then of course you go into some of the requirements for public school, and they tell you that certain things are required for school and they're not. There's just so many things that are being fed to the public and they focus on poor communities, on communities of people that anybody that's not white, um and it's I'm like, what year are we in?
Right.
I mean, I'm blown away. And so I'm so happy that you are doing the work that you're doing because it is needed in this world. I The rebel in me is like, yes, Annie.
Come
Let's
on,
do
let's build this army together. Let's do it.
Yes, yes. By the way, Miss Tina's joining us out there. Miss Tina is joining us. I am funny. I'm something about Alabama. That's another show. And Brittany's enjoying your story. I love it. And I would love for you, if you're joining us, say hello. Let us know if you have any questions for Annie as we're going on. So as you're advocating for all of these people and you are the mama bear and you're the warrior, how much of that energy have we spent on ourselves, Annie?
That's the question for
Mm.
2024. So I started writing my book about this very topic. Advocating for myself was the hardest thing I had to do. Because I am a person with huge empathy, right? So I can feel someone else's energy and their emotions and what they're going through. But when you're going through all of the emotions and things, it's hard to remember, okay, this is how I need to de-escalate. This is what I need to tell. So, and it becomes overwhelming because just like I was talking about, the education system being overwhelming, the healthcare system, which is the system that I had to, battle with most recently, past couple of years, the gaslighting, and it's so unbelievable. So I'll tell one specific story. So in 2019, I think it was, I wasn't feeling well. They ran a bunch of tests, ended up finding out that I had a mass on my thyroid. We went through all the tests, found out it's not cancerous, but during that time was when the COVID shutdown happened. So like March, April of 2022. Everything was kind of shutting down. Or was that 21? 21, 20. Oh my God.
It was something none of us know.
20. And excuse me. What was I talking about?
When you found the mass and yes.
Yes. So, of course he was like, well, with COVID and everything, they're only really doing emergency surgeries. And so since it's not cancerous, we'll just watch it. Okay, fine. 6 months pass. And I'm like, I'm struggling to breathe. I'm really having issues. And he has the nerve to look at me and say, have you thought about talking to someone about your mental health? So that was the moment where I literally said to myself, okay, you have 3 options. The Newark can come out of you and you could just go off on this old man, which nobody wants that to happen, right? Nobody wants that. Number 2, you could get up and walk out and be like, I'm not doing this. Or number 3, you can use that education that you are so indebted for and tell this man off in the very educated way that you would do for anybody else, right? Like if I was advocating for a child, advocating for a family, advocating for a system, I would break down, okay, look, we know what the literature says. We know what the research says. Da, da, da. So that's when I chose to do that for myself. And I looked at him and I said, I am trying my best not to get up and walk out because this has already been a long process. However, I am sure you are very aware of what the data says about Black women in healthcare. That you all don't think we feel pain. That you all think that we are exaggerating things. That healthcare providers, like just all of the things, right? And then, of course, that shook him. And that's when I realized, like, oh, it's just like with every other, you got to meet people where they are. If you are struggling with the doctor, doctors talk research. And I get that not everybody is comfortable with that, but there are burgeoning places and spaces for this type of advocacy for folks to get support. But that was the moment where I said, look, I'm not doing this with you. You have been the doctor that got me to this point, and you're going to continue to get me through my healing because I'm not starting over. And he said, oh, of course, if you want to get a second opinion, I get it, blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, he wanted to run a bunch of tests. I said, okay. Come to find out that the mass had doubled in size, or more than doubled in size. And it wasn't, the reason why he thought I was exaggerating is because the mass was not visible. It had grown back. So my spinal column, my cervical spinal column was straight, and it was growing down, which is why I was having the difficulty breathing, because it was pushing on my lungs and my vocal cords and things. Next thing I know, I'm getting a call saying that the head of surgery at Georgetown University will be doing my procedure and making sure that I got like all of the good support and services in that. But even that was just one example. Throughout that entire time, trying to advocate for myself and then working with my husband to help advocate for me, and even taking him with me to doctor's appointments and him seeing the way doctors treated me. And he was like, I've never been treated like that in a doctor's office before. So for him to just be able to observe it, like, I'm not doing anything extra. We just showing. I literally had a doctor take a paper and I had a panic attack. Like, they had to take me to the hospital because the way he treated me was so horrible that they ended up having to get an ambulance to take me to the ER because he had sent, my heart, and it was a cardiologist at that. But yeah, it's being able to advocate for myself was one of the hardest lessons I had to learn. But I needed the space to quiet myself in order to think through what is the problem? What is it that you need to fix? And again, going back to the very first conversation that we had, right? Like, how do I share this information with this person so that they can hear me and learn what it is that I'm saying? And because they have all of this experience, right? They know what tests to run. They know what to look for in the blood work, all of those things. But sometimes they just need a reminder. So that's kind of the way that I've shifted my self-advocacy now, is it needs to be a reminder because the data is out there, right? Like, all of us who are professionals, we are expected to uphold our profession in some way. And so I think, asking any professional to be able to uphold those standards of excellence and high quality and service to the people that they're serving. And I get it, doctors are dealing with a lot with insurance companies and all those things, but we have just, it's almost like I have to step outside of myself, even in the self-advocacy,
right,
to advocate for myself. And that takes a lot of energy.
It's the medical, it's another system that needs to be overhauled in a big way. And it is that situation where sometimes you're going in there and you're talking to these professionals that it's like they don't even realize what they're doing because they're just doing what they've been taught and what that person's been taught and what the person's before. And there's like, when are we going to learn a new way of doing things and dealing with people? And And my husband, my husband saw a very similar experience when I went to go give birth to my last daughter.
Uh-huh.
And like I was already like, it was time. It was time.
Get it?
We had just come off the highway at literally a random hospital because we couldn't make it to my doctor, my where we were
Oh,
going.
no.
And so I'm like in a strange place, strange people, strange doctors, and so I laugh so hard every time I think about this because I remember them trying to like get me to lay down in a certain way and be a certain way and do the, and my husband goes, "You need to let her do what she's doing." Period. Like
Have,
he had to step in, but it, it was like, I can't believe they were trying to make you do all that. And I'm like,
well, have you seen I think there was a TikTok of a woman. I saw her original and then her follow-up where she was in the same predicament. This was not her first child. So she and her husband had been down this path before. And the nurse came in and said, well, we need to check you. And the midwife, the husband and the woman who was giving birth, because they've all been there before, they were like, she gets to a certain point where you cannot touch her.
right.
And the nurse was like, well, she needs to, and went and touched the woman, and the woman punched her.
I can't say I blame her.
I mean, self-defense is all I'm saying. The woman said, don't touch me. You touched her.
Yep. Yep. Miss Tina said it's very unfortunate how the medical system treats those they are there to serve. And that's, I think sometimes they forget that little oath, that, that little thing that they're, yeah, there's
First to
that.
no harm. Yeah.
Yeah. So for some people that may be tuning in today, they might because I know I've been in that position before where very in the beginning of my fun health journey, I was afraid to speak up for myself because I'm just the patient. I didn't go to school. I don't know anything. They might feel like they don't know enough. They might feel like, maybe I'm not as well spoken as Annie is. I don't know how to say things in a certain way. Like, what do you say to the person that's just afraid? How can they begin to get to that spot where they start to advocate for themselves?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'll say is, if you are advocating for yourself, you are the expert on you. You are the only one that knows what you are feeling, how it feels. So I would say from a practical standpoint, journaling what you are experiencing, what you're eating, how that makes you feel. Is there something that triggers you, right? Like, does work trigger you? Being able to articulate that, it's not, I don't want folks to get bogged down in being able to find the right words to explain or express what they're feeling, but just being able, because there are times I wish you could hear some of the ways I explain some of the things that I'm going through. I look at my medical professionals like, look, just deal with me for a second. But this is the way it looks. This is the way it feels. And oftentimes they'll go, that actually makes sense. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So I feel like I'm sounding crazy by telling you this is the way it feels or looks or whatever, but you're affirming me. So because we are the experts of who we are the best to speak to our experiences. And sometimes what I have found is sometimes I just have to quiet myself, allow the professional that I'm dealing with to say what it is that they need to say, and then I'll speak, to whatever it is that I'm dealing with. So not worrying like, okay, so does this mean I have to Google, and get the top 3 research articles about what I'm experiencing? Absolutely not. But we do know that women are gaslit in the healthcare system. We do know that people of color are gaslit. And when it comes to these systems, we're gaslit in all of these systems because none of these systems were built for us. Even education, it wasn't built for us. It was built for white men. And so we are trying to retrofit all of these systems rather than looking at the people that are in the systems and adjusting the system to support the people. So my biggest the number one self-advocacy tool that I would give folks is document and maybe I used to oversee HR, so maybe that's the HR side of me, but document these things. Document the way you make. I had to go for a test. I have hypertension, and I had to go for an infusion and a test, and they had to observe me for a couple of hours just earlier this week. My blood pressure was lower than it's ever been. I mean, we were just sitting there like, this is wild how low my blood pressure is. And so sometimes it's just a matter, like my husband and I say all the time, science is not an exact science. Science is the act of finding out information.
Right.
And so the second thing I'll say as far as practical advocacy is figuring out, or I started to ask for a plan. Instead of asking them to fix me or like, can we just identify whatever the issue is? What is the plan? Because we were treating my symptoms. So as long as you're treating symptoms, then you have more, medication and more side effects and more things that happen versus saying, okay, this is what I'm dealing with all of these things. What is the plan to get me feeling better? And once I put that out there, and I literally I went to one doctor, she diagnosed me with something and she started writing it all down. And I asked her to write, this is the plan for this, and to sign it to show this is what we're working towards. So you are on the same page. I'm on the same page. We're both being held accountable. And then the third piece is you got to be a good patient. You got to do the things or whatever it is that you're advocating, whatever that space is where you're self-advocating. Being a good patient, meaning what are the things that you're doing to better the situation? And not to say that in, issues of systemic injustice that the people need to carry that burden, but from a self-advocacy perspective, sometimes just kind of taking that seat back, listening, making sure that you have all of those priorities in place and moving forward for yourself. Gathering all the data, gathering all the information about yourself. Again, I'm not saying anybody needs to get on Google Scholar or WebMD, but what is it that you're teaching others about you? That's really what self-advocacy is. You are teaching others about you. So you are the expert in you. If you don't have a word, if you don't know what the the Merriam-Webster definition would be, make up your own word. This is what I call it, because this is how it resonates with me. So definitely in the advocacy space, I want people to recognize your authentic ingenuity is so powerful. Even though the powers that be tell us it's not, it actually is. And that's what folks are most concerned about, is us recognizing the power that we have within.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the step about making a plan and asking your providers to do that for you. And it reminds me one of the things that I have done for myself, because sometimes, see, I'm a very stubborn person that goes back to that rebel thing. I'm also don't listen to myself either. So so that's a problem.
Like that for a very long time. Tell everybody else what to do. Don't listen to my own words.
That's it. But as I'm asking other people, one of the things that helps to give me a little bit of confidence for myself is to make a plan for me of okay, if I'm going to a new provider, what is my plan? Okay, my plan is going to be to go in, present what I'm presenting, listen, and if I don't resonate with what they're saying, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
If I do, I am going to be the good patient. I'm going to do the things I need to do, and make that plan for myself before I even get in there, because sometimes we get overwhelmed. When you get that diagnosis, or when you get that, that news, or you hear something that you don't like, then we get emotional.
Yep.
And then we forget what we're doing. So if I go in there with, this is what I plan on doing, doesn't mean you have to stick to it, but at least have an idea.
Yeah, here are my questions.
Yeah.
Ask folks questions, no matter who it is that you're going to see or advocate. Ask questions, and I think a lot of reasons why folks steer away from asking questions is because they're afraid that they're going to appear dumb.
Right.
But it's like, even if that's a concern, here's something that I'll offer. I just want to ask for clarity, right? Like if you start off by saying that, I just want to ask for clarity so that you and I have the same understanding, and then ask the question, because then the other person won't feel like they're being questioned or something. Like it just opens the conversation so that you're communicating to the other person that you're working with. Okay, I am doing the work to advocate for myself, and I expect for you to show up too. Because that's one thing, that's another piece. Once I started showing up as the patient who was going to take everything into consideration and really kind of take charge in leading toward my health, they all came right on board with it. They love the fact that, I don't call myself a good patient. I just want to be the healthiest I possibly can be. And so I just keep those lines of communication open with my medical team. And now I have so many subspecialists, and it can be a lot. It can be very overwhelming. And that's another reason why it's good to document these things, because there's so much that can be going on. And because that's not an area of expertise for many of us, we do, fight or flight, right? We do get scared and steer away from it and stuff like that. So yeah, advocacy feels overwhelming, and it feels like a space that's not welcoming. But I have found my strength in self-advocacy.
I love that. And the more you advocate for Annie, the more Annie can change the world because she will be with us.
Exactly. I'm trying to stick around a little bit longer.
I love it. I love it. Listen, we're going to take one more quick break and listen to Dorothy Auger's For Love poem that ties right back to what we were talking about in the beginning of this episode. And then we're going to find out, is Annie okay? What's going on in her world? And how can you connect with her further after the show? So we'll be right back after this.
I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart. I shall stand for love, for the world is wounded, not just my little piece of land, where I am mostly safe, where I am mostly well, but our world, everywhere, every day. I shall stand for love, because we need more light, not more death, not more power, not more bombs. I shall stand for love, so that our children are safe, so that our friends are sheltered, so that our borders are open. I shall stand for love, even with a broken soul, even with a heavy heart.
Please visit weshallstandforlove.world to find out more information about Dorothy Auger and her For Love project and the poem that has been translated in over 70 languages around the world. We're back with Annie Holmes on our fabulous episode of the Breakthrough Show today, who's been giving us I hope you all have been taking notes, because there's been so many tips and tricks and ideas through storytelling, of course. Not you have to, but through storytelling that you can implement in your own life to advocate for yourself and for other people today. So give us an update on your health journey, where you're at now. How are you doing? How are things going? And are you still finding that fire to advocate for yourself today?
Absolutely. I am healing well. I had 3 major surgeries in 3 years. And so we're hoping that that's it. But this has caused me to literally stop. Unfortunately, I had a cardiac episode in 2022. That March of 2022, right after having that thyroid surgery, actually, a week later, I had a cardiac episode. And so it has been quite a journey. I've been collecting a few diagnoses, but again, having a plan has led us to the diagnoses, which is good because now we know what we're dealing with. And so right now I've really just been focused on, my husband loves to say, do what you can when you can.
Mm.
And so one of the mindsets that I adopted kind of from an abundance mindset perspective is I noticed that I would lean very heavily on trying to do something right for myself, right? Like, oh, I'm going to eat a lot, drink a lot of water, but I'm not eating enough protein or not getting enough vegetables in or whatever it was. I realized that I had to strike a balance between in everything that I was doing with mind, body, and soul. So every day I check in with myself. I utilize mindfulness tools. I've been to therapy, so I utilize a lot of those tools as well. So every morning I start off with a body scan. Just kind of walking myself mentally through my body, where are my aches and my pains. I take my morning medication. Like, I take time for myself versus rushing through things, right? So like, taking my medication is not just a daily thing that I do and then I move on. No, I take into account, what's my blood pressure before I take this medication? What is it 30 minutes after, right? Like, so I've had to learn how to slow down my pace and really just prioritize me, and recognizing that me being selfish is not me being selfless. And so I want to make sure that my selfishness and my selflessness are connected, that they're, again, that I'm not leaning more toward one and not the other, that I'm finding the balance. So with mind, body, and soul, every single day I'm making sure that I'm still documenting how I'm feeling. I document how I feel when I eat certain things. And just really keeping the lines of communication open with my medical team, my different specialists and subspecialists, has been critical for me. And so we do have scares every once in a while. But the good thing is we know what to do. I could text my PCP right now if it went down. So I am healing. I have been surrounded by love. My husband and my kids have just been phenomenal through this process. I felt like I was putting a burden on all of them, but it brought us closer together as a family unit. And so they give me the space. Like, what do you need so that you're okay? And then they've also learned to take that on, right? So they take on, this is what I need right now to be okay, mommy. We have those open and honest conversations, because again, that selfishness and selflessness, I want them to learn from that. I want them to learn that it's okay for me to take time for me to be okay, and let others know, here are my boundaries. I need an hour or two to myself. And then we can joke and kiki and laugh and or go to the store, do whatever it is we need to do. But use our communication to communicate what it is that we need, when we need it, how we need it. And that communication has been critical in my ability to heal, truly heal holistically. So I am feeling pretty great, but just, continuing to do all of the right things, eat the right things, get the right exercise, all of
Being
the
the good patient, being a good patient over there.
all the things they told us we were supposed to do. I finally figured out at 45 how to do it.
Well, I feel like, this health journey that you've been on, the health journey that I've been on, doing these things and learning what we've learned in our homes and allowing our children to see that transformation is going to help them advocate for themselves as
Absolutely.
they get older. So that starting it in the home is a great place to have your children learn how to advocate for themselves when they are not in the home and mama can't be mama bear anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, I have your information scrolling at the bottom of the screen. It's also in our show notes as well. But let everybody know what you're up to in your life, where they can find you. I know you're working on a book and everything. Tell everybody about what you have going on and where they can connect with you.
Absolutely. So you see all of my handles down below. Leading Elevated Levels. We are excited. We have our first talent showcase. Our artists Grammy winner Daryl J. Williams. We are so excited that his hometown of New York City is welcoming him and his one-person show to New York, Mind of a Tenor. So that will be May 11th, and looking, excited to connect with some other possible clients and bring them on board and be the platform to help elevate them. And my LinkedIn is where I'm probably the most active from a professional standpoint. But if you want to catch me acting up just a little bit, that will be on TikTok.
That's what we do on TikTok. We just act up a little.
Just act up just a little bit. You gotta have that space.
Brittany knows about that. Brittany, where are you at, girl?
That's the best place to do it. That's the best place to do it.
That's it. That's what, I got on TikTok too, with the sole goal of embarrassing my children, and then and then I turned out to love it, and it's a great place to just act up a minute.
It just for a little bit, and then find people from around the world to act up with you, so then you don't feel alone. It's great. Yep. It's wonderful.
Yep.
Yep.
Here she is.
But yeah, elevatedlevelsfoundation.org is the website. That's where you can find all of the information about everything that we're doing. We are actually a Black-owned private family foundation, so we are a nonprofit. So we're excited to be able, all of the things you heard me talk about with homeschool and learning and performing arts and economic development, that is all part of our family business, actually. And so, we just want to bring some of what has helped us thrive and make that platform available for others. So I'm just excited, Jessica. Thank you so much for having me on. This has just been so much fun.
I love it. And let me just take a moment. Look at this family. Hello. And the outfit, the whole thing is just.
Those outfits were made in Africa.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
They are stunning.
Thank you.
Stunning. And I love little outfits like that where the whole family can be like.
Right, it's matching and stuff. I love it. They put up with me for a day. They did. They were like, okay, you're getting this award. Fine. We'll put up with you and dress like you for one day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love my kids on Christmas morning. Really, Mom? Like, why? Why? It's like, we put it out. But one day they will thank us, Annie. I'm determined.
They sure will. My kids talk about the memories all the time. They're like, can we go back through some of those pictures? All the time.
I love it. I love it. Well, Annie, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today. I will be keeping an eye out for all that you're doing, because we're eventually our paths are going to cross somewhere up here in the Northeast area. So I'm excited for that when it happens. Have a blessed day, Annie. Thank you so much for being here with me. I want to thank all of you for being here with us today. It has been another incredible. I need to start warning people ahead of time to bring a notepad and a pen to these episodes. But I want to thank you for coming here to watch the show today. As our time with Annie Holmes draws to a close, I am left reflecting on the incredible journey of advocacy and the many breakthroughs that have punctuated Annie's path. Annie, thank you for sharing your story with us, for the light that you bring to communities in need, and for the reminder that our battles, both personal and collective, are worth fighting for. Today's conversation underscores a truth that we often forget, that advocacy is not just about the causes we champion in public, but also about the battles that we face in private. It's the convergence of these struggles that we find our deepest strength and our capacity for breakthrough moments. As Annie has shown us, each challenge, each moment of adversity is an opportunity to advocate for change, for growth, and for a better future. It's a call to action for each of us to stand up, not only for the rights and dignity of others, but for our own as well. Don't miss our next episode, Fall Guy, featuring the incredible story of John Cheatham as we continue this theme of exploring adversity, overcoming adversity, and finding purpose amidst the trials of life. I'm your host, Jessica Dugas, and I want to remind you to make every day a great day for a breakthrough. And thank you so much for being here with us today. And thank you, Annie. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.